Just would like to welcome you to our new webinar in our webinar series. Today it's about Kerio Control Statistics and Reporting. With me is my mighty colleague from the US, Brian Carmichael. Hi, Brian.
Yes. Hi, Carson. Thank you.
He will show you some demo today after this presentation. So I will just give you a quick overview of the agenda. So first of all, we would like to give you a quick, brief product overview. So what is Kerio Control all about? We will introduce some business challenges you may be faced with during your work, and maybe also your managers are faced with this. We will show you some statistics and reporting. So what is exactly this module in Kerio Control? How you can act on data you are collecting with the statistics and reporting module. And as I said at the beginning, Brian will show you some demo how you can achieve that statistics and reporting will be useful for you. At the end, we have some question and answers where you are able to ask us some additional questions about this product. So let's first start with the Kerio Control overview. So Kerio Control is a unified threat management which is pretty easy to use, so without any complexity. It is, of course, a network firewall. It is also a router, and it has intrusion prevention system integrated, also antivirus protection, and which is not so common, we have some VPN functionality in our Kerio Control at no charge, and you can do the Kerio VPN itself. We provide Kerio VPN clients for several platforms, or you can use the IPsec VPN, which is, for example, in mobile devices available. So at this point, additionally, I would like to mention that you are pretty flexible in the deployment of our Kerio Control. You can have a hardware box. You can have it virtualized in an ESXi environment or via Hyper-V, or you can build up your own hardware, and with our ISO file we are providing, you can convert this whole hardware into a firewall. So what are business challenges you are faced with pretty much every day? So first of all, we have, of course, maybe people doing illegal downloads in your network. You have people using definitely social networks like Facebook or the Twitter or whatever. And of course, all this can also result that you may have slow network performance. So all those topics you see here, you may have also heard the questions from managers or from the boss. According to these things you have seen in the slide before, there will be questions like, are my employees accessing objectionable content? Do they receive fast internet access so they can work efficiently? And basically, which is the most important, are they doing their job? So how can we measure, or how can we see if people are doing their jobs, or to be say it more general, what is happening in our network? So first of all, you need to somehow gather data about your network. This can be done with Kerio Control, and you see here a snapshot or screenshot of the Kerio Control statistics, and this gives you a pretty good overview what Kerio Control is capable to show you. You see at the pretty top, you see the top requested web categories. As this screenshot is taken from our own control, of course, top requested web categories is information and communication technologies. But you can also see the top users, so you can see how many how many bandwidth they have used, how many requests they have done. So this is a good overview to maybe identify distractions or problems. When we go further, you have the screenshot that you even can see it on a per user basis, how much traffic they have caused. So how do we achieve that? Of course, to gather data, this must be activated in the Kerio Control. This can be done in the accounting and monitoring section of the web administration. And I just highlighted it here with a red box. It is pretty much at the top. There are two options: gather internet usage statistics, and you can additionally tick a box that also users, so specified on the user, that this activity should be recorded. To have, of course, data gathered from or collected from the users in your network, you also need those users to be logged or better say authenticated against the Kerio Control. You find this in the domains and user login section also on the web administration. And there is, again, I highlighted this with the red box at the very top. You have to tick the box that it is always required that the users authenticate. How this can be done automatically with no interaction from your users will be explained in one of our knowledge base articles. We have at the end of this presentation, you'll find a little collection of, as we think, useful knowledge base articles all around Kerio Control and their statistics and reporting. Beside the technical prerequisites, you should also think about business and legal considerations. For example, you need to notify users that data is gathered. So a pretty good way to achieve this is normally in bigger companies but also in smaller companies, you have a so-called employee handbook. Usually you find in these handbooks, for example, your email address, who's your manager, I don't know, where you can find the next Starbucks coffee, but you can also include information or a notification that the people with this are aware of the fact that they are monitored, not specifically per person, but that in general the network is monitored and data will be gathered. Additionally, you should also define authorized personnel who is allowed to see this data you are gathering. It could not be that, for example, my colleague Brian has easy access to my usage statistics. It makes sense that my boss has access to this to see where I'm spending the whole day, my time in the internet. And there could be definitely also additional legal requirements, but that would be better checked with your local attorney, or maybe because in Germany it could be definitely in stricter rules than, for example, in the US. So now when we have all the technical prerequisites and legal considerations done, we come to the data analysis. So all those reports can be sent to you automatically by email, or you can activate it. You can activate that they can be seen via the web interface. Brian will show you this in the demo later on. Again, here is it highlighted with the red box. When you look at those reports, basically the email reports look pretty much the same like the ones you see in the web administration. They are pretty much detailed, but you can have it also on a very, very high level. So here, for example, we just look at Ken Snyder's usage statistics, and as you can see that the reporting is based on user rather than IP address. This means it doesn't matter with which device he is using the network. Is it an iPhone, an iPad, his MacBook, or whatever? All this data will be gathered, and this will be automatically aggregated under the actual user, in this case Ken Snyder. So how to act on data? Now as we see the data of, for example, a specific person, in our example Ken Snyder, how can we act on this? So let's have again a quick look on the history of Ken Snyder's usage of the internet line. So we can see there are lots of pages he visited. He's working in the IT department for an IT company. So we see he's been on a page of 3CX, which is a PBX. He has been on Discuss, he has been on iTunes, but I see also something else. I see there is one entry, bikeexif.com. So why the hell he is surfing on pages where you can see motorcycles? So this is nothing that has definitely nothing to do with his job. So interesting that he is also visiting such pages. As you can see again, all the other pages are pretty okay. But how we now act on this? We do not want him to visit those bicycle web pages. So we can create a content filter. So first of all, as we have said in our employee handbook we handed out to Ken Snyder, it is not allowed to do some private surfing. So he knows about the fact that he's not allowed. So maybe we can again tell him, hey, please be aware, data is gathered. So please concentrate your work on pages which are necessary for your work, but not on any, let's say, non-IT pages. To monitor this, if he's still doing this, we create this content filter rule. As you can see, we are still allowing to visit those sites because we would like to use this content filter later on in some other content. So it's at this point it is not pretty smart to deny him visiting those pages. Because we always want that whenever he is using such or when he's visiting such pages, his boss, Scott S., should be informed. They already had some talk together, they already had a conversation with each other to see if Ken is now acting as he should. His boss will always be informed whenever Ken is visiting those motorcycle vehicle pages during the business hours. Additionally, we create some bandwidth management rule which limits the speed of download and upload to 56 kilobits, which is pretty annoying slow. So it's no fun to surf such pages. I now switch over to Brian, who will show you on which different places in our Kerio Control you can achieve all those settings I just showed you in the demo in the presentation. So Brian, your turn.
Thank you, Carsten. And thanks, Ken, for letting us pick on your motorcycling interests. So I'll go ahead and get started. You see this is the dashboard here, and what I'm going to do is just walk through the same workflow that Carsten had shown you during the presentation there, just enabling the authentication, capturing the data, and then reacting on it. So the first thing we'll do is go here to Domains and User Login. We'll enable user authentication. Make sure to apply that. You'll see here also There's an option to use radius authentication, which sort of simplifies the whole process of authenticating users on the network. If you don't enable this, or if you don't have the ability via Wi-Fi to authenticate users, basically what it means is that they'll get a login page via the web browser when they try to access a website. So this way the firewall is able to report on users by name as opposed to just generically logging activity based on IP address. So this way we can identify specifically that access to certain websites was done by Ken and not by some just random computer on the network. So the next setting I'll show you is here under Accounting and Monitoring. And this is the Kerio Control Statistics feature, so the ability to gather internet usage statistics. So you'll want to make sure that this is enabled. And then you'll see there's another option here to gather the activity reporting, and we'll specify a time range. This is the default of 2 years, so it's going to store the information for that long. You can also have exceptions here, so if you don't want to log certain people's traffic, you can do that here based on a time interval. So, you know, whatever people do outside of work hours, you might want to just say, I don't want to report that at all. Another common use case is maybe there's certain websites that like, for example, here at Kerio, we're oftentimes going to same page or to Kerio, and we don't want all of that access to sort of get in the way of normal activity, so that it's not going to kind of show that we spend 75% of our time on same page, for example. That's already a given. We want to know kind of what else they're doing, so we can set exclusions here for certain URLs that we already know people are going to, and we don't want that activity to be logged. So aside from that, you've got the ability to exclude by IP address, and then also by users, in addition to URLs and time intervals. So the next item here is to show you how to set access to it. So obviously only privileged users should be able to view statistic information. So here's where you would define which particular users have access to Kerio Control Statistics, and specifically to who or what groups of people they can see. For example, you might have many departments. So someone in the sales department, the manager there, might need to only see the usage statistics for the sales team. So this is where you would define those rules that specify which managers can see the data for their specific employees. So just to show you an example of one of the rules we have set up here, so you can see the admin user is going to see the data for pretty much everyone on the network. And then you see the example here that actually Karsten mentioned, where normally I wouldn't be able to see his data. Obviously this is just a sample server here, so being that I'm the administrator, I can specify that I can see Karsten's data. So that would be the typical manager and then employee scenario. Also, you notice here at the bottom the regular email reports. So I think Karsten mentioned the fact that you can have automated emails sent on either a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, so that you don't have to regularly log into the web interface. You'll be given an email automatically to see those reports, in addition to the ability to log into the web interface, which is linked right here. So as a privileged user, you can log in just to the host address of the firewall using SSL, of course, for the encryption. And then when you log in, this is where you would see the activity of both yourself, but then also any of the users that you have administrative control over. So Karsten showed several screenshots that kind of illustrate what type of data is reported here, and this is just a basic server where there's no live activity, so you're not going to see any kind of nice fancy looking reports, but we do have screenshots of that. So I won't spend too much time going through that. So let's jump back here to the administration interface and show you now how to react to some of the data that you might have collected within Kerio Control Statistics. So referring back to the example that we've had earlier of Ken and his obsessive motorcycling habits. So what we'll do is we've identified now through Kerio Control Statistics that he does like browsing motorcycle websites. So what we want to do is set up a few rules to identify when he is going to those sites, and maybe even set some bandwidth controls that make it a little bit less comfortable for him to access those sites without outright blocking them. So the first thing that we'll do is create a content rule. So here under the content filter, I will add a new rule, and we'll call it Ken Motorbike. And under the detected content, we'll edit that and we'll add applications and web categories. And it's a fairly long list here, so I'm going to do a little search and you'll see that it comes up with motorized vehicles, which is the overall category of which motorcycling falls under. So it'll also show me if he's going to BMW's website, for example, or some other automotive-related websites, which in either case probably is not going to be work-related, so I'll want to know about that. So under the source, of course I could apply it to everyone here on the network, but basing it on our example, I just want to know when Ken is doing that. So I'm going to type in Ken, add him to the rule, and then the action will allow it, but we want to report on it. We want to know, and when he's going to those types of sites, and we'll leave it. Let's just leave it as valid all the time. So we'll apply this here. So we're allowing Ken to go to motorcycling websites or any automotive type of websites based on the category, but we want to know about it. So the next step here then is to go back to accounting and monitoring, and we're going to set an alert. So what we want to know is anytime Ken goes to one of these websites, we want to receive a notification. So under the alert settings, I'm going to make a new rule that says send me, Brian, an email anytime this content rule is identified. So this Ken Motorbikes rule, we'll make it valid all the time, or maybe we can limit it to working hours. So during working hours, if Ken goes to one of these motorbiking websites, let me know about it. That's basically what we're defining here. So if we do find through various alerts that actually Ken is going to a lot of or very frequently visiting these sites, I can then further make it a little bit more obnoxious for him to actually go to these sites by enforcing a bandwidth rule. So that's the more intrusive step here is we'll make another rule, and we'll assign again the content rule that we created specifically for Ken, and we'll enforce a bandwidth rule to limit the download speed, just as Karsten had shown in his presentation there. I believe 56 kilobits per second, which is almost dial-up speed, and we can go ahead and chart that, so we'll be able to visually see how much or how effective this rule is, and we'll apply that. So now with this rule in place, we'll be able to actually enforce a bandwidth restriction so that it's not going to be that interesting for Ken when he's visiting those motorcycling websites, so that'll hopefully deter him from spending that much time doing non-work related things. And so that's the last item that we had here from the demonstration portion.
Okay, thank you so far, Brian. I switch over to the presentation again. It takes a little time before the Adobe Presenter is coming up again. So as you can see, the statistics and reporting and how you can handle with this data is pretty much straightforward. So there is no miracle, it's pretty simple, and as I mentioned at the beginning, all our products can be administered without any complexity. So it's pretty straightforward. Anyway, to give you some more help and ideas and of course things to read, we have a collection of Kerio knowledge base articles which we think is pretty good if you would like to dig deeper into the topic of statistics and reporting. It gives you a pretty good overview how to use alert messages, how you can view the activity reports, and we have also some special knowledge base article for managers so they can see what is possible, what is Kerio Control Statistics and reporting capable of. So basically that's all for today. So I would like to thank you, and I also I would like to thank Brian for helping me with the demo. And of course, I think, Brian, we both thank Ken Snyder for providing his obsessive bicycle data thing. So thank you to you all. And if there are questions, feel free now to ask any questions you would like to ask. As I said, this is pretty much forward, so there are no questions coming up. So thank you, and please do not be irritated when we end this meeting that there will be some pop-up showing you the date for the next webinar, and you will also automatically be forwarded to the registration page for the next webinar, which will be about Kerio Operator, and the topic will be by VoIP. Thank you very much, and see you later.